Welcome to the deep dive with myself, Pamela Walsh, and the lovely
Sian Horn. Thank you very much. How was your week, Pam?
My week was good. I was in Cork. I was at an Ernest and Young women in business meeting. It was a lunch in the Maryborough with the lovely Sinead Kane and Peggin Crowley from the club. They were chatting. It was actually lovely. I know you obviously know Peggin, and you know how amazing she is when she's speaking. Peggin, sorry. Yeah, she was saying that it's like little Peggy and she's quite tall.
Little Peg. Yeah, well, actually, I know them both. So me and Peggin have been friends for years. She's a founding member of the club. And then Sinead Kane and myself are the ambassadors for Lululemon for Cork City. So
she is. She was saying that, yeah.
So we're both good pals, but I was gutted to miss it.
She's a scream, Sinead Kane. I'd say she would just chat for Ireland forever. She's so funny, and I would actually listen to Peggy and speak all day long. I really, really like her. She's great. And we got some lovely ground products as well. So my house is covered in the scent of ground, and I love it. They're just gorgeous. It was a lovely lunch. It was in, the Orchard Suite in the Maryborough. It was gorgeous. It was really, really nice. And what else did I do this week? My car is packed in this morning. So I had a load of meetings in Cork today that have all been cancelled because my car, after I get off this call, has to go to the mechanic. So I'm trying to reschedule my week, and I'm meant to be off Wednesday and Thursday this week. And I'm the people pleaser in me is very tempted to cancel my days off and just pack everybody in then. But I'm I can't. I need those days. They're really important. And I'm fighting with myself now today to just tell everybody it's okay. I don't need to do anything, and I'll just fit you all in. It's so annoying when just mechanics break. I'd today planned really well. I'd 3 really big meetings in Cork with a potential new client as well, and everything now. If everybody wants to meet in person, I'm we can do Zoom, and everyone's no, we'll wait for you. I'm oh.
Yeah. Do you find when you have a meeting in person, it goes on longer than a Zoom meeting?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I do too. So you have to really watch the timings, don't you now?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do too. That's mad.
But I'm when I'm on Zoom, I feel like I need to do small talk more when I'm in person. But when I'm on Zoom, I had a call the other day with 2 people. Kate from Holistic Designs was there, and I had to message her afterwards because she was just back from holidays, and I was literally on to the call, and I was right, bang, 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 what do we need to do? Here we go, blah, 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 talking about deliveries. And I got off the call, and I was I didn't even ask Kate how she got on. I had to message her because I just get straight into work. I'm so not a sociable person, but when I'm in person, I'm better. But anyway, how are you? How did you get on? I know you were in very wet and windy Malta.
Yes. Yeah, a bit of a mad, work week, mental, because I had to try and get all of my work done in one day last week.
Yeah.
Just chatting to you actually before we came on, I set my out of office. I always like to make my out of offices as entertaining as possible. However, it's still, I think I spoke to you about this last time I came back from holiday. People don't believe out of office means out of office. They still reply, still ask you questions. I only turned my app on my phone on the Wednesday because I had a deadline. And then it's off. If I'm on holiday, I'm on holiday. And that's what I teach and preach my clients. And I'm confident enough that nobody has died because of that. So, yeah, I think I'm going to have to do some real education around what an out of office is. And it's funny that you said, did you say that you don't monitor your emails at that time? And I was but it's an out of office. Out of office to me is out of office.
I will say though, if somebody's out of office is on and I'm sending them stuff or they need stuff from me for the following week, I'll still fire stuff into their email. So when they come back on Monday, they'll have it. And when they open their emails, they'll be able to see my responses or whatever else. But I would never assume they would respond to me, but I'll still send them stuff.
Yeah. So I'm going to start to get people to put themselves in other people's shoes a little bit more, because what's the worst thing about going on holiday and coming back to your email is the amount of emails in your inbox. Mm-hmm. And so that causes not pressure. That causes stress. So I don't actually. I just put in my diary the day they're back. Like actually my diary at the moment's got 4 other people's holidays on it. 2 people that I work with because I don't want to bother them whilst I'm away, and I will because I'll forget. And 2 people that I need to talk to that are away, and I've put in when they're back so that I can contact them. It would be lovely to brain drop it out of my brain, but I just know how I feel when I come back, so I don't do it.
But just on that then, what's the difference in me sending you that email on the Friday while you're out of office and you're not meant to be checking your emails versus at 8 o'clock on a Monday morning anyway? You know what I mean? You'll still open your emails to my email. But you won't know. You shouldn't be checking your emails, so you shouldn't know it's in there. I don't
check the emails, but what I'm saying is that the difference is, no, I'm not talking about you emailing me I'm talking about you replying to my out of office.
Okay. Having a conversation with it, like.
Yes, that's what I can't get over. So like everybody's going to email because they don't know you're away, but when they get the out of office, I can't get over the amount of people that then continue the conversation. And that's what I think. That's when I'm like, no, don't do that, because that is stressful. You've received the out of office. I will deal with that one thing that's come in. Now I'm dealing with 2 things, or sometimes a third. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. And I'm like, so now that's what I find stressful. I'm just like, if you've received an out of office, don't reply to it. It's madness to reply to it. I'm not there.
I know, but but when you come back then from holidays,
I've only got one.
Delete all of those, or do you actually respond to them?
How do you mean delete what?
Like if they're replying, I suppose.
No, I have to, because it's a, and so then you know how, like, and then in your Gmail, so they're linked. So then you have to.
Oh,
so then you read the second one before the first one. It's so annoying.
Yeah.
Like I just want it to stop.
I do. I think like you're going to be very hard pushed to do that, because I do just bang things. I wouldn't have a conversation back. If I get an out of office, I'll say enjoy when you're back or whatever. Or I will say
voicemail.
What?
Have you ever rang my phone and gone to voicemail?
No.
So no one ever leaves a voicemail on my phone. Yeah.
Why?
And like again, you have to do it one day. I'll turn my phone off for you. So my phone says, "Hi, Sean, do not leave a message here."
Yeah, I'm shocking for listening to voicemails as well. Yeah.
Do not leave a message here. I do not listen to voicemails. If you need me, then please WhatsApp me or send me an email. I will not go into this inbox. And I haven't had a voice note since 2020, I'd say.
But yeah, no, my voice notes could be piling up, or voicemails could be piling up for days. I check them sporadically when that little red dot starts annoying me. I literally now have a red dot on my phone, and I could have 7 voice notes in here.
Yeah,
I'll only listen to it if I get a missed call from a number I don't know, and then a voice, because then I'm just nosy and I'm like, who's that now?
Yeah. Well, I always think, like, at the end of the day, they can text you. They've got your number.
Yeah, I hate voice notes.
Voice notes are horrendous, and you can't speed them up. That's the most annoying thing. So yeah, I literally, and the amount of texts I get saying, just listen to your voice notes, laughing face, just wondered, blah 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 blah. But I never open it. I've never listened to it. I didn't even know about the red dot. There might be a red dot. I'm just checking.
I have a red dot that comes up on my phone because I have all notifications turned off for everything. I'm like, if I want to see it, I'll go in and check it. I don't have notifications on my phone. Every so often, when an update goes through, some of them turn back on, and I have to go and figure out how to turn them all off again. It's so annoying.
Yeah. Anyway. That's nice little. I feel better now. I feel cleansed. Nice little moan. Let's go for it. We are on law 29.
So the law is create a cult mentality. A cult-like mentality and cult-like commitment from staff can be incredibly useful in the beginning stages of a startup. It can determine the culture and generate the passion required to launch a new business. But as a company grows, it needs to develop in order to achieve long-term objectives. Cults are not sustainable. If the culture is strong, new people will become like the culture. If the culture is weak, the culture will become like the new people.
What do you think about this one?
I see it in bigger businesses because I'm seeing it now in kind of a company I'm working with at the moment. Like it's like those high potential startups when they boom and get really fast, really, really quickly. And they've always thrived on culture of like, we take really good care of our staff. We all believe in the same thing. We're all working towards the same goal. And then they reach that point of that's not enough anymore. And they need more structure. And to me, that's when, well, it's always really important, but it's most important as your team grows is that hierarchy of values, vision, mission. If that's established really well, it minds everything and the culture kind of comes into that.
I think it takes a time to get there though. I think,
that's what I'm saying. You need to run off culture or cult mentality till you get to that.
I was thinking of examples for this. So like, he talks about the 4 sort of elements to it. Obviously the sacrifice that you make at the beginning of something. Then you've got your growth. So that's the cult stage. Then you've got your growth
0
stage,
to 1 where you're all in, you've no balance. It's just everything consuming.
Everybody's just blinkered. They're heading for the same thing. And the growth bit, which can be sort of bedlam behind the scenes, which I completely agree with. Then the enterprise piece where it becomes more stable. And then obviously the decline. That doesn't always happen because quite often when a really good business has created something very, very strong, when they start the decline, they see and spot that they need to make some changes to that culture and they start all over again.
The D is like decline or diversify or differentiate, it's whatever happens there.
I actually worked for an amazing company as I was growing up, I say in my 20s, and was for Whitbread, David Lloyd. And actually, I never forget in 2000 when I moved to Ireland and we took over the Riverview Club. And I remember one of the staff saying, God, it's like you've got a chip in your head. Because I would have died for that company. Like I loved that company. I loved everything we stood for. I believed in it. I was, and actually it wasn't about how well I was looked after. I mean, I was well looked after, but I believed in the culture. I believed in what they did. And they probably went into that D situation possibly twice whilst I worked for them, and I'd say probably 15 times since I left. That initial cult sacrifice piece, I see less these days than I saw 20 years ago, because especially when I was younger, it was we kind of did what we were told to do. The buy-in sometimes was easier.
Yeah.
Now I think it's questioned much more, but quite a new startup that I see that cult sacrifice culture would be a company called Legit Fit, started by a few lads in Cork City, and actually Gym Plus Coffee, actually, they'd be a really good example of it. So it's still there, and I think that hugely I believe in it. I think where some businesses fail is they get the wrong people at the beginning, or they can't express what they're trying to do.
Yes, communication is so, because like as the founder, you need to bring your team with you on this journey and just like sell your enthusiasm and passion to them. And I do think those first couple of players coming into a business with you are so important, because you all need to be of that like mentality, that passion and that mindset in behind whatever like problem you're trying to solve in the world. I think I see what you're talking about with the new companies, but it's a generational thing, isn't it? It's the Gen Z versus like I'm 2 weeks left. I'm going into my final year of my 30s, so I am clinging onto with my Vernales. I'm the older end of the millennials, so I'm kind of at the cusp between Millennium and Gen X. And then there's the other side of it, which is Gen Z, and they're kind of the age group coming up now. And they're not as, unless it's their idea and they're the visionary behind it, bringing them along into your goals and your vision is much harder, because their expectations of work and life and how things flow are quite different. You really need, I think it's harder getting them to buy in at the moment, because look, and I don't 100% disagree with it either, because I think we got it wrong for a long time. It was very extreme, especially when you get to the point of having families and things like that. And I think that generation are looking towards that end of going, how are we meant to achieve all of this? It's very difficult. Like, the villages we all had are gone. So they don't want to kill themselves for work anymore. And when it's not their idea, when it's not their profits, it's just a wage at the end of the day. A lot of them are like, well, I can go and get that somewhere else.
That sentence is what I've got a problem with. When it's not their idea and it's not their profit.
Yeah.
No startup's making profit.
None.
So my argument would be is that there's a real lack of understanding of it. It's not your risk, actually, and it's not your financial detriment. Because no startup, like, people have this thing in their head that once you own a business, you start making money, and it's just not bloody true. And everybody wants the glory pieces, but no one wants the financial or the time the problem issues. And I think that's a real shame. I've always started in companies that have been quite fledgling. I mean, I look at, my first ever job was with a Jigsaw. Jigsaw is massive now, a huge clothing company. My second job was with Arcadia, massive Top Shop. Evans, I think they've actually shut down now, but they're massive. Do you know what I mean? They're not shut down, but they've lost some. Well, they're not in Ireland anyway. But the huge companies, I kind of went in to those companies whilst always working for a solopreneur. I always had a second job, and that might have been in a small restaurant, whatever. And sometimes I'd be asked to do stuff that I didn't understand and just take a punt on people. And I always took that punt because I had an understanding of it wasn't my loss.
Yeah.
And I think that sentence people really need to think about when they're thinking about working with a startup or fledgling businesses. It's not my idea and not my profits. If that was the case, like, the club would be 4 years old this year. It's gone from taking a bit of profit in year one when it was an actual business. Now it's a social enterprise. No one's making any money, but everybody believes in it.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear that thing from from younger people that I'm working with a lot is not my idea. It's not my, it's not me making the profits. I'm just making X amount per week. And I'm like, yeah, but you're getting paid. The person starting up isn't getting paid at all. In fact, they've probably put their house on the line for it.
Yeah. And I think it's though, they're selling this, go work for yourself, passive income bullshit online, be your own boss. And I think people go into being their own boss and they expect, you'll have all this like freedom and flexibility and you can do whatever you want. But like, to me, yes, I have freedom and flexibility, but however many clients I have that week, that's how many bosses I have. Because you're always answerable to somebody. You're answerable to your clients. You have to deliver the work. You have to make sure it's of a good, high quality standard. You're lying in bed at night and you're worrying about everything. And there's a lot to be said about being an amazing number two and like an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? Being that entrepreneur within someone else's business and supporting development that way. And, you're no risk. You're someone else's budget.
Number two is my favorite place.
It's so much easier. It's not easier. It's still very hard.
No,
you just don't really carry the risk.
Yeah, it's really hard. But I'm a really good number two. And I sit at number two in a few people's businesses as an advisor. Mm-hmm. I love being there. Yeah. When I worked as an ops director for Whitbread, I sat in number two. I was so good there. I hated massive company now. I didn't I had to be number one for a certain period of time. I didn't enjoy it at all.
No.
I could get shit done at number two.
Yeah. Because number two, I think you can be more focused as a number two. because you just kind of have your area to cover. Whereas number one, you're everything. You're like, and everything all the time. You have to be aware of what everybody's doing, how everybody's performing. It's all encompassing. And that's why as businesses grow, founders will very, very often, and they become more successful when they bring in a CEO to run the company for them. And then they just do what they're good at and what they enjoy. Most companies that do really well will often do that, because typically founders aren't great CEOs, because CEOs need to be really, really good in management and the overall like team leadership, whereas founders are a bit more chaotic and like, let's do this and running after the next thing, because that's how you get a business off the ground. But getting a business off the ground and profitable doesn't always equate to running a really good business very well when it grows. They're two different skill sets that are needed.
Oh, 100%. But yeah, so back to the law, because we always
I know,
roll off.
But I think cult mentality, I think you do have to have cult mentality. Like I feel like I'm kind of saying that wrong and it sounded like the other word. See you next Tuesday mentality. You do. I think some businesses are, when you're on your own and when you're a solo entrepreneur, you have to think about it being a cult in your, you have to be obsessed with it. You do. You can't just do it for 4 hours a day. If it's going to work, it needs to be on your mind 24/7. And people don't want to hear that, but it will be on your mind 24/7. It's not something you pick up and put back down. When you're having your shower and you're walking your dog and you're playing with your kids, it's rattling around in the back of your head. And that's sometimes when I have my best ideas. I'm like shouting at my phone, "Hey Siri, take a note."
And it's not a scary thing. If you're doing what you should be doing and loving it, then having it in your mind all the time is a pleasure.
Like I was in the shower the other day and I was screaming at my phone for Siri to take a note, because I'm like, if I can't get it down on paper, it might disappear in 10 minutes. And at the end of the week, I'm like going through all my random notes that I have on my phone and trying to get them into my kind of knowledge-based documents, and I put them on the shelf and something will come of it, something might not come of it, but it's always in my head. Now, you could say that's one of my ADHD voices as well, because my brain doesn't shut down at all, but it's always in my head. And some days I genuinely think God being a number two would be just so much better, because I could still drive a business, have less risk and do all of those things. Because being the number one and being on your own it's tough, like.
Yes, I know. It's my first day back from holiday. And it's actually funny because I got a text this morning. They're like, is it okay to do the XYZ? And I think, like, people forget I run 3 businesses. And I'm like, time blocking out for each business today is going to be imperative. I don't return from holiday till tomorrow, apparently. I always give myself that day, because I'm going to need 3 hours on each business today. Just to get back to normal. And once that's done, I mean, I'm sitting here, I've got butterflies in my stomach. Everybody thinks, oh, like she's so calm all the time. But I have butterflies in my stomach because I know what today entails. Trying to keep your brain in check is really difficult. But I think, like he talks about as well, like making sure that you keep getting the right people. And if you do get the right people at the top, and make sure that they really understand what you're trying to do, then they just draw those people in nice and steadily.
And that actually leads really well to the next law. Because the next law is the 3 bars for building great teams. So it's like building that team of A players. So with every hire, you should be looking to raise the bar. And just like Sir Alex Ferguson did, if any current hire, regardless of how many trophies they've won you in the past, becomes a bar lowerer, you must quickly and decisively act to stop their influence, destroying the sacred collective culture. The definition of the word company is just a group of people. And in this, he talks about basically the 3 bars. The 3 bars are, when you hire a new person into your team, one of the biggest questions to ask are they going to lower the bar, maintain the bar, or are they going to like increase the bar, raise the bar for performance and like culture and how we want to work as a team? And I think that's really, really important. I think it's getting harder these days because it's hard to hire people. Our pool of people is getting smaller and smaller. It's getting really, really hard to hire. And like in my last kind of 12 months, anyone I've tried to hire, I would like work with other people and help them hire and expand their teams. And the pool of people is getting much smaller, especially if you want to work in office. You'll have a larger pool if you can work remote or hybrid in that. But it's a really important question. Will this person coming in raise the bar or maintain the bar? Because you don't, like, it takes one person to just bring toxicity into a group of people. And if they're not happy, they just tend to poison the place, really. And hiring well doesn't offset that. You just have to remove it.
No, I was going to say, it's sad that you could have like 9 really productive, proactive, real positive people in a workplace, and one person comes in and they can pull that whole thing down.
Yeah, they can. Yeah.
It's not about numbers here. It's about, it only takes one person to drain it.
Yeah, you need to nip that stuff in the bud and really get rid of the bad egg, because I'm always very vocal about, like, when you hire somebody, you really need to use that, their kind of a probationary period, and within that 6 months kind of assess personality fit and culture fit along with technical capability, because you can teach people most things. Really, it's the personality fit and that kind of, work ethic as well that you want to fit in with the team, because eventually the team will all work at the pace of the slowest moving person, no matter how good you are, because there's a few different stages that people can be in a workplace. It's like actively engaged, disengaged, or actively disengaged. And I would always be an actively engaged type of person in any workplace. But I was in a workplace once that I went from actively engaged to disengaged because of the people that were around me, because it was just so difficult. There was so much toxic, stuff going on in the workplace that I just, which is totally unlike my personality, eventually just kind of went, what? Now I left obviously eventually, but it was like, what am I doing here? Like, you're basically throwing sand against the wind trying to get anything done. And that toxic people around really, really good, actively engaged people can do that to them.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. When I had one of my businesses in Dublin, we always seemed to have that one person, and it was always the last person that came in would always, but I'd say for me it was procrastination. I'd give them a chance, that there's good in them. Like, you know what I mean? They showed me that their first few weeks. It's only gone downhill since then. What am I doing wrong? But actually, it was a personality trait. It was nothing. Everybody else in work was really happy, and they would just stick that poison in. So they'd have to go. And I think the one thing for me is, and one thing I was taught very early on in my career was, always leave on good terms. Even if you're having to get rid of someone, always try to make it as easy for them as possible. Always shake their hands, and that works both ways. If you're leaving somewhere as well, because you never know when your paths will meet again. And just because you didn't get on in a work scenario, they didn't believe in what you were trying to achieve, doesn't make them a bad person. Mm-hmm. It just makes them a different person.
Yeah. And the thing is, they probably would fit well in a different type of culture or something, you know what I mean? But I worked for, it was actually quite a large multinational for a while, and the lady who was like the director on site, she ran the whole site. She expanded a huge, massive in Cork. I remember when I worked for her, one of the first times I ever met her, I was like, oh, she's brilliant. Like, her whole motto was, if you're not happy here, go be happy somewhere else.
Yes.
And that she used to always say, because it was like, we don't want you to be unhappy here. So if you are unhappy here, just go be happy somewhere else. That was a real, don't bring this place down with you. But it was a really nice way of saying it. And it's so true, because if you're miserable, there's a lot of jobs out there at the moment. Just go somewhere else. Like, why stay somewhere that's making you miserable? I do think some people just like to be miserable and like to have something to complain about.
And misery loves company.
Yeah.
Let's face it. You know, I always say that, you know, misery just loves company. But like he uses the example of Man United, obviously. I do think it's extreme. You know, if I still follow Roy Keane and Gary Neville, and they talk about that culture an awful lot. And the culture came first. And I think as a woman, that's where I would have a sticky point, because people are important too. Like, he was ruthless.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? To extremes. Now, super, super successful. You'll never hear people, well, probably Roy Keane does tell it as it is when he talks about him, but he will be known for the rest of his life as the most successful Premiership manager because of the way that he ran the culture. And sometimes when you hear Roy Keane and Gary Neville speak about it, Roy Keane obviously was let go and has issue with it. Gary still talks about culture. And when he talks about the culture, he talks about how Roy Keane actually policed it, because he believed in it too. He was 100% sold in. And I think that's why it broke him so much when he left. But I do think, you know, it's harder for women. I think the one bit of advice I'd have on this is, if you do have that person, you do have that piece of poison, and you need to recognize it early enough. Like you were saying earlier, Pamela, you can't procrastinate. You have that certain period of time. And if it doesn't feel right, we're back to listen to your gut. You have got to get rid, but in the right way. Have the conversation, you know, and make sure that you can, if possible, leave on a good note.
And I do think if you're doing it right and you're being honest and not being the ostrich with your head in the sand the whole way through, when it comes to the point that person has to be let go, it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. If it does, and it's really, like, it's going to be a different conversation anyway, these things always are. It's horrible having to leave people go. I've had to do before. It's like, I don't think you'll ever get used to it, and it's never going to be nice. But it shouldn't be in that room as a shock. This is the first time they're hearing about it. Doing it well means you've had multiple conversations all along. They should know they're not doing something right. They should have gotten a lot of feedback. And by the time you get to that point, it's like, well, look, we've tried our best here. Both of us have. This is where we are. But I want to go back to Alex Ferguson, because I always think of you when I think about Alex Ferguson, because I've seen a lot of he did create a brilliant culture, and he was ruthless. He's very well respected and renowned in his industry and as a manager. But what he did really well is something that you do. I see you do, and you do it so well in the club. And I always watch you do it from afar, because it's Alex Ferguson knew everybody on the team. He knew their grandparents' names. He knew what they liked to do as a hobby. He knew all their kids' names. He knew that Gary Neville's daughter had a school concert next week. And he checked in with them and he asked them about all their little life things. And you're like that. You know everybody. You know everything about everybody. You know all their businesses. You know what's going on with them. They all reach out to you and talk to you in that way. You're like that when you're in a room with people, because I've seen you're in a conversation with somebody over here and they need X done for their business. You scan the room and you know everybody's businesses, and you over there, like, Pamela, I know you can do this, you're great at this, come here and talk to this person, like, because you know all of that about everybody. It's just something in you that you take in. And I think that's also what creates amazing culture, is that real genuine interest in people and knowing them and what's going on in their actual lives, as opposed to just what they're bringing to your company. Having an interest in the people behind the performance for your company as well, you know.
No, and I know what you're saying. I don't do it as well on a personal basis. Alex Ferguson was dealing with individual people. I know everything about people's businesses. I know a lot about people's private life as well, but mostly their businesses, because that's the realm that I live in.
But you don't get that much though, like in a networking situation, because there's so many people in a room, there's so many businesses there. You seem to know everyone, what they do, what they're good at, what their specialities are.
And that's why participation over pitching was so important to me as a culture when we started the club, because the reason I know that is because I didn't pitch my business to anybody ever. I'd listen to them.
Yeah.
And people go to these situations so worried about how they present themselves and how they present their business and what 3 lines are they going to use as their opening 3 lines and how can they get their business over as quickly as possible. Well, I say just stop stop doing it. Stop doing that, because let people just get to know you and actually listen to them. So I've spent the last 10 years just letting people pitch to my ears, I suppose. And that's why I know. But I do have I really am genuinely interested. So that makes it easier. I do love and have a passion for business. So I love to know what everybody's doing, especially small female-led businesses. Like I think women are just phenomenal.
Yeah. No, we are. To be fair, no, we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at someone like Ferguson, like I do think he's amazing. I think what he did was just phenomenal. I just think as women, would be some of the moves that he made were extremely harsh. I don't know. Have you watched the David Beckham documentary?
I watched half of it. I didn't watch all of it.
Yeah, I mean, he was like his dad, but he didn't like a move that he was making, and he let him go. And you can see how much that those, especially those sort of, the David Beckham, Gary Neville, Phil Neville, that era in the 90s that came through, that young squad he brought through, they loved him like a second father.
Yeah.
So when they were let go by him, it hurt them deeply.
I know, because I know what you're talking about in the Beckham thing. That was because he was bringing too much paparazzi and attention, and there was too much distraction. I will say, and I agree, it's difficult, but Ferguson was making really difficult decisions for the club and the team as a whole. 100%. I can't imagine he made those decisions easily. I would say it hurt him as much as it hurt them.
Absolutely. It definitely hurt him.
He always had the whole of the teams, like, the good for them was all, I think, came above every difficult decision he ever made. And I do think as a good manager and as a CEO, that's what you need to do to like run that kind of big team-based business. And sometimes that's why the founder and the startup isn't always the best for that role, because we tend to be a bit more emotional and kind of driven by passion, you know what I mean, and things like that. Whereas you have to be able to do that, because I've had to do it before, and it's very hard, that like really difficult decisions, just the needs of the many, you know what I mean, versus the needs of that one or two. Even if it's an amazing team player and they're hitting all their marks, if they're bringing the team down or taking focus away from the long-term objectives in some way, and you've worked with them and you can't seem to fix it, sometimes you have to make that very hard decision.
It is horrible. I mean, I worked in HR with Whitbread, and obviously that was a lot of my job. And that's why one of the reasons I left, because I hated working in HR. HR is a bloody horrible job. Really, all you're doing is getting rid of people, and finding the best way and legal way to do that. It's really hard. And I think one thing that you said earlier, which is it shouldn't be a shock to people.
No.
But there are some really sort of there's some really hard bits. Like I remember once one of the managers that worked under me, she had an issue with member staff. They were just miserable. Like that was their makeup. They were just not very happy person. They were a pessimist. They couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so obviously we're taken through the right procedures. And then you worry then for people's mental health.
Yeah.
Are they, so you've just got to be really, really, really careful in these circumstances. And I think that's why, I mean, before I take anybody on, even if it's in a contractual role, I get them to do a project and to really see if they're the right person. And it's so funny because a lot of the time when I'll give you, for instance, I had 10 people apply for a social media content creation role. I asked them all to do this small project. 2 people did it. 8 people went, well, if I'm not getting the job, why would I spend 2 hours doing that? I don't want them to work for me.
Yeah.
So that's grand. 2 people did the project. 1 person hopefully will work out. The 8 that couldn't be asked, I don't want working for them anyway, because I am not, my culture is I can't be asked is not my culture. Like,
yeah,
you just have to be ready to go running.
No, I know, 'cause the enthusiasm really needs to be there as well. And I will say, like, I've seen people sit and just ace an interview and they're everything you want them to be. And then they start, and 2 weeks in, you're like, where is that person we interviewed?
But it's mad, isn't it? And I hate that. And that's why, do you know what, though? I saw something the other day which made me laugh. Somebody was at some workshop or something, and I just saw on the board they were being taught how to be authentic.
Stuff.
But that's the problem. Stop being taught how to pass the interview. Stop being taught how to, say your first 3 lines. Stop being taught this shit. Mm-hmm. Because it really is, just be yourself. I mean, I do think with the whole Alex Ferguson thing, I do think if it was Alexa Ferguson and it was a woman, she would have been called out on that.
She'd be a bitch. Like, she'd be known as a bitch. Yeah, she would be 100%. Like, yeah, it just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't go down that way. Like,
it would never happen. But yeah, I think for me, from this, when it comes to culture, always do it the right way. Take your time as well. Sometimes we get, I've just taken on an intern after losing my intern 18 months ago. It's taken me 18 months to find somebody decent.
Yeah.
But I could have just got somebody.
Yeah.
But it would have been someone middle of the road, and I need someone exceptional.
Yeah, I'm looking for somebody at the moment. I've decided I'm going to bring somebody in, and I kind of know what I need them to be able to do, but I'm waiting, I'm sitting back. I want to see, can I find the right? I have 1 or 2 people in mind already, but it's like that now with me. It takes me a while to make decisions on things, and I'm going to wait and see.
I'm going to give you this advice. When you decide exactly what you need them to do, I want you, even if you've got a couple of people in mind, I want you to advertise it.
Yeah.
Because one thing I have learned over time is I will never ask someone to work for me ever again.
I know what you mean. No, I'll 100% still advertise it and hope that those people do apply.
Yes.
Yeah, because I want them to want to do it,
Yes.
Because it's just, no, I'm definitely not hiring. I don't want employees.
I see opportunities, not just for me. I see opportunities for other people. So sometimes, I've made the call and I've rang someone and said, listen, I've got this idea. In fact, it's so funny, actually. About 4 years ago, I rang 2 people that I knew that would be amazing for this startup business. And I was like, I've got this idea. It would be absolutely unbelievable. The URL is available, blah, 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 blah. And one of them texted me there last week and said, I can't believe that business is now like one of the main businesses in social media marketing, and sent me 3 websites. And I was like, I know, you could have been at the head of the game, but you couldn't believe and you couldn't take the risk. So you've missed out.
Yeah.
But I'll never, and I can't even tell you the amount of conversations that we had and everything. And then I was like, guys, I have to knock this on the head. This isn't for you. I think it is. And you'd actually be unbelievable at it, which they would. And now they're both on the same WhatsApp group going, I actually can't believe that we didn't listen to you. And I'm like, it's too late now, guys. You've got to be the first or the best. And if you can be both, you're laughing.
Yeah, I know. It's hard, isn't it? Because especially when it's like first, 'cause we like to stick to what we know, you know what I mean? New things is very hard. I come up against that all the time with what I do, because what I essentially do is challenge the status quo. Like, I literally got an email the other day going like, we need fresh eyes. I'm conscious that we're doing things the same way just because it's all we know, because we've been doing it for years. And then I'm the fresh eyes. I'll come in and I'm like, but why can't, like, let's try this, you know? I look at everything and try redesign it again, but it's hard because you have to be willing to break ties from what you think is right and experiment in that way.
100%.
Yeah, and there's risk. It's all risk. It's how, so literally I'm actually have about 1 million forms I need to fill out from Karen at Shoreplan to do like a risk assessment, because Karen is going to take over our financial advisory, because, you know, for my future. Excellent. Setting on my pension. But it's your attitude to risk in things like this. Like, I would have a pretty easygoing attitude to risk to a certain degree, you know, compared to a lot of people. I think you work for yourself, you do anyway.
Yeah, well, I'm a medium risker. I will
be a medium. Yeah, depending on, sometimes I can go into high, depending on how much information I have about things and what my gut tells me. If my gut tells me I can go high, I'll go high. Otherwise, I kind of tend to stay medium.
Yeah, I'm being a medium risker. I was actually out for lunch with my in-laws, and they told me how they'd lost all their pension in the crash, and I was like. And I was like, what kind of risk? And he was like, oh, there was no risk. And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, no, she's fantastic, Karen. So yeah. she'd be great. But yeah, it's always interesting. So yeah, culture is super important. Who you have around you. We all know this. But I think it's just seeing it through, making sure that we deal with people in the right way. And taking our time to find those people as well. I think it's really, really important. We can panic and just take somebody on because they're there and they're a set of hands, but that's not always the right way. Sometimes just take the pain.
I think so.
And find the right people.
I think if you're going to panic and take somebody on, because sometimes we are drowning and we just need a shovel from somebody, then that needs to be a very short-term contract. Like, I need to dig out, this is 6 months, and then while you're in that, you're assessing if they're the right person, or you're still looking, but always short term for dig outs like that.
Yeah, I'm a 12 week. I think in 12 weeks I really find out if I can work with someone or not.
You will, yeah, no, definitely. Go on.
Amazing.
We'll hop off.
Thanks, guys.
Next week is the last 2 laws in the book. There's another one, but it's kind of a funny one.
Okay, well, I'll have a look. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Pam.
Talk to you next week. Music used for the opening and closing of this podcast is titled Pleasant Porridge by Kevin MacLeod. IncompeteTech.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0. www.creativecommons.org/licenses/by/4.0.